The following exhortation in the preface of the Erasmus New Testament demonstrates his courage. I utterly dissent from those who are unwilling that the sacred scriptures should be read by the unlearned, translated into their own vulgar tongue. I wish that even the weakest woman should read the Gospels and the epistles of St. Paul. I long that the farmer should sing some portion of them to himself as he follows the plow. Erasmus's translation became a primary source for Martin Luther's German translation 6 years later, and William Tyndale's English translation 3 years after that. The first English convert to the Reformation was burned at the stake in 1531. His name was Thomas Bilney, a pioneer of the English Reformation. In 1517, Bilney was training for the priesthood at Cambridge University. He left his dormitory room one evening and made his way to a bookshop where forbidden books were sold. He purchased a copy of Erasmus's Greek-Latin New Testament. Hiding that night under a cover with his illegal purchase and flickering candle, he felt the strong light of God pour into his soul. He read in Timothy 1:15, where Paul stated that he was the chiefest of sinners, and that Jesus Christ came into the world to seek and save those who were lost. Bilney cried out, "No, I'm the chiefest of sinners." He became so enthusiastic about faith and about acting on the promises of God that hundreds of young men were converted to Christianity on the Cambridge campus. One night he confessed his sins to Professor Hugh Latimer. During his confession, he proclaimed the gospel of Jesus Christ. In his diary, Latimer wrote that he learned more about God and more about salvation from Bilney's confession than his previous 10 years at Cambridge University. In 1519, Bilney was ordained a priest and received his license to preach. He became a powerful force in distributing Tyndale's New English Bible and other forbidden literature throughout England. He eventually was arrested, tried, and sentenced to be burned at the stake. Through his faith, Thomas Bilney believed that God would not allow him to feel the heat of the flames. He comforted his friends the night before his burning and told them that he would not feel the heat of the flames. He said, "Though the fire should be of great heat to my body, yet the comfort of God's Spirit should cool it to my everlasting refreshing." The next morning, William Tyndale's Bibles were used as kindling to start the fire. Imagine an English-speaking world without Shakespeare, Tennyson, T.S. Eliot, and C.S. Lewis. They all had one common influence: a man whose prose and creativity in designing the English language is one of the greatest contributions to Western civilization in the annals of modern history. The father of the English language and the sole translator of the Bible into modern English must certainly be revered by every Christian and every English-speaking man or woman wherever English is taught. Surely such a man would have died in honor and wealth and was respected by all. In fact, his life and work are scarcely known to the intellectual community, much less to the common masses. And he died in poverty and in exile from his native country of England. To the establishment, William Tyndale was an outlaw. He had a price on his head and was hunted relentlessly for 11 years by his king and by his church. His only crime was obedience to God, and thus resistance to tyranny. William Tyndale was born in 1494 in Gloucestershire, England. He enrolled at Oxford in 1505 and literally grew up at the university, receiving his master's degree in 1515 at age 23. He spoke 8 different languages fluently. One associate described him as so skilled in 8 tongues that whichever he speaks, you might think it is his native tongue. He eventually moved on to Cambridge University, where he formed the White Horse Inn Society. The society was composed of about 25 young men, all of them with the exception of Miles Coverdale, would be beheaded or burned at the stake. Thousands of others were martyred as well. In 1517, 5 men and 2 women were tried for heresy. Their crime? Teaching the Lord's Prayer to their children in English. They were found guilty and burned at the stake. Their martyrdom spoke clearly of the insanity that had possessed the church. England and the entire continent was a war zone of upheaval and widespread persecution.
William Tyndale came under suspicion for his views on the authority of Scripture and his views on the interpretation of the Bible. In fact, in one of those heated discussions one day around the table, one of the local bishops, a very powerful man, said that he revered the Pope's laws more than he did Scripture. And William Tyndale could not constrain himself. He looked that bishop in the eye and he said, "I defy the Pope and all his laws, and if God would spare my life these many years, I will make it possible for the boy that drives the plow to know as much Scripture as you do." He was called before the most powerful bishop in Bristol and warned that if he continued to teach in English the things of God, that he was going to have to suffer the consequences, and those consequences were not going to be easy. It became clear he had to leave. His burden had developed to translate the Bible into English. In 1524, with assistance from the secret society and with a strategy and a carefully laid plan, Tyndale would go to Wittenberg, visit with Martin Luther, and then at a given point in time show up in Cologne on the Rhine River to print the Bible in English, at least the New Testament, for the first time. We know that the word has been leaked to the Inquisition, to bounty hunters that are in the employ of the church as well as in the employ of the monarch, to track down these dissidents, these men that want to violate laws regarding the translation of the Bible. The bounty hunter goes to the city authorities and gets a search warrant and a seizure warrant and proceeds to the print shop. Simultaneously, Tyndale's tipped off. He gets to the print shop before the bounty hunter gets there. He seizes his manuscripts. He seizes the text that's on the press. Only the first few chapters of Matthew have been printed in a beautiful, beautiful printing. And he escapes literally within minutes of the bounty hunter coming through the front door, and they go up the river. In fact, they go up the river about 50 miles to a city called Worms. Peter Schaeffer, Jr., was now living in Worms and was a Lutheran, had been converted to the Lutheran doctrine. And it was to this man, the son of the printer of the first Bible, the Gutenberg Bible, that William Tyndale goes to, and 6,000 copies of that Bible are printed in